rider that was going south on the Tegenbergs managed to get himself back into contention, as indeed did Ian Stannard. Not that Stannard's thinking about chasing, of course. Now over a minute to those three riders up front. Now surely Geraint Thomas is thinking about attacking. What does Stibar do? Stibar is a good finish on him, but well, neither of the other two would fancy themselves in a 3-up sprint against Peter Sagan.
No, you think that. He won it quite easily last year in a sprint finish. Geraint Thomas hopefully will remember that and knows that he'll have to try and distance Peter Sagan. As you rightly said, Stibar, former world cyclocross champion, winner this year already of Strade Bianche, is a good finisher also. But the three, this has been a hard race for them. The three have been out for, since the old Quaremont. They'll have a good feel about how the other two riders are going. So this race is not over, and Peter Sagan is going to win this. There's still two other strong riders with him, Thomas and Stibar will try and fight him for this win, but fighting at front of the second group, and I think a road to nowhere. They just left it too late, are Giant Shimano and Lotto Jumbo with Katusha.
Well, just over 10 kilometres remaining now in E3 Harelbeke. Three riders up front. Peter Sagan is going to start feeling very lonely indeed any minute now, I feel. Surely Stibar and particularly Geraint Thomas have to be thinking about attacks coming very, very soon. The chase is still on behind, but have they left it too late? Surely they're not going to be able to close this gap with 10 kilometres remaining. Having said that, that little dig has sliced a couple of seconds off it, and Katusha also looking to keep pushing all the way to the line as best they know how. So now 53 seconds to the three riders up front with 10 kilometres remaining in E3 Harelbeke on the front, just getting out of the saddle as he finishes his turns. Zdeněk Stibar, Peter Sagan rolling through. Very comfortable up front, as indeed is Geraint Thomas of Team Sky. The news will be received by them that they have pretty much a minute. They've lost a little bit of that lately. They're starting to look at each other. I can feel it coming. Surely an attack is going to happen very, very shortly. The run into the finish, a familiar one to these riders.
I may have been doing some riders a wee bit of an injustice. I forgot actually this was a World Tour event, so just when I noticed there, the riders have got radios in their back pockets there, so they have got radio communication. So take it away from the riders, or put the blame on the sports directors behind. It's even worse, because they've not been telling the riders to move up towards the front. So I have to at this stage apologise to all the riders, because it's not their fault for committing. But again, I'll say for the team directors to put the riders up now, they should have been riding with BMC. These things happen, but you can just see the rider on the radio in the back of Geraint Thomas. But all World Tour events have race radios, all other races do not.
Peter Sagan goes to the front, and his ears must be burning at this moment, because surely there are conversations going on in team cars behind, particularly in Team Sky and Etixx Quickstep. Geraint Thomas rolling through. He kicked this one off and is perhaps the strongest of the three in the break. Not that there's much to choose between them. They've worked very well indeed.
The gap is coming down ever so slightly now, Declan, but it's more that the three riders in front are starting to finesse a bit. They're not giving 100%. They know they've got a bit of an advantage, and they're just trying to save a little bit of energy for the final few kilometres, but they can't hang about too much now.
They certainly can't, because Luca Paolini is a man with a huge sense of purpose at the moment, and look at the way that group is strung out. And riders will be feeling very, well, they're going to be feeling tired. It's as simple as that. Not everybody's going to have the same strength. Stijn Vandenberg is probably relieved that he's not asked to do a big turn at the moment. Look around. I'm not going to the front. And that big stall could be all that the three riders up front need to hear.
And now Christoph is towards the front. Alfredo goes on the attack on the right-hand side. I just don't understand some of the tactics here. Why just take them off the front? It was coming down. It's 40 seconds. Three strong riders in front, and again the questions have to be asked the sports directors behind. What are they doing? What are they playing? They're just throwing this race away now.
A little more impetus comes into the chase, courtesy of Lotto Soudal. You see, 6th or 7th rider in line is the imposing figure of John Degenkolb. Increasingly frustrated. Jon Alfredo has closed the gap to within 38 seconds now. And there's a little bit of glass cranking going on up front for sure, as Geraint Thomas rolls through, Stybar rolling through too, and Peter Sagan all taking it in turns and using pretty much the same amount of energy, and not quite as much as it was. This a very, very dangerous game of cat and mouse.
It is 38 seconds now, 7.5 kilometres to go, and 3 very strong riders in front, starting to finesse, starting to look at each other. But why, oh why, did Katusha just automatically stop riding there? I just don't know, because they have got one of the fastest finishers in this group behind, Christoph. And, you know, these 3 riders have fully committed, so they were pretty much almost guaranteed if they'd have brought these 3 riders back at a podium place with Christoph. Okay, John Degenkolb's there, but it would have been close. But are we going to ruse in a group sprint? These 3 riders going to stay away? It's in the balance again for pretty much the second time. When BMC came towards the front, nobody wanted to help. They lost Van Avermaet. Then the other teams wanted to ride. Then they've sat up, and there's a bit of disarray in the group behind. These 3 riders are still ploughing on, but you can see them starting to ease ever so slightly back, starting to think of the last few kilometres.
You're in the Team Sky team car. How do you call it for Geraint Thomas? When?
He has to get rid of... they can't mess about too much now. It's only 38 seconds, so you think that he would have to learn from last year. He cannot ride Stybar and Sagan towards the finish, and in fact, Stybar and Sagan are, I think if Geraint Thomas goes on the attack, I don't think either Stybar or Sagan would want to combine with each other. They'd probably look at each other. So for Geraint to win, he has to surprise them. I think if he really hits them hard with about possibly 3 kilometres to go, that Stybar and Sagan may look at each other.
So when is this attack coming? Surely, very shortly. Katusha absolutely burying themselves to try and get Alexander Kristoff back into contention. The gap, though, has gone back up to 44 seconds with 6 kilometres remaining in E3. Harelbeke, the 3 riders up front, still working well together. Not quite perhaps the same impetus that they had when they initiated this attack somewhat 30 kilometres ago. A little bit under that, but they've been out there for a long time. And we are expecting any minute now an attack from the man at the back of the group, Geraint Thomas. They're starting to look at each other. They know it's coming. It's not going to be a surprise when it does come, because definitely the impetus has gone out of this group up front. The impetus a little bit more so, I think, from the group behind. Still trying to keep the pressure on as they come to the top of this short little rise. It's Peter Sagan, the fastest finisher of the 3 riders in this group, that's on the front of the group. Also the reigning champion of Harelbeke, a winner of a stage in Tirreno Adriatico just over a week ago.
And one interesting fact has become with 5 kilometres to go, both Peter Sagan and Stybar actually won their respective national championships on the same day, in the same race. Sagan actually won, Stybar was second, but they have got combined championships. I just think of Geraint Thomas, who looked super strong in the Old Quartermount. He instigated the attack. If he goes on the attack with about 3 kilometres to go, then I think that Sagan and Stybar may look at each other, and it's a great opportunity to get a very big win for Thomas.
Big opportunities coming up for several riders. 41 seconds. The gap is staying steady and is surely enough at this point if the 3 riders up front continue to ride at this tempo. Thomas goes to the front, riding through what's going through the mind of the Welshman. E3 Harelbeke would represent a very, very significant addition to his palmares indeed. Stybar surely doesn't want to go to the line either with Sagan.
There's pressure on all 3 of them. Geraint can maybe relax a bit. He goes in the right-hand side, as we said, 4.3 kilometres to go. A big attack now by Geraint Thomas.
Here it comes. We've been waiting for it. Finally it comes, and he's got the gap. Look at that. Geraint Thomas, he has the strength, and he had saved just enough. And it's Stybar that's going to have to close the gap because Sagan hasn't got it. The reigning champion is surely not going to win E3 Harelbeke now. If Stybar gets across the gap, will these two riders ride it to the line? That remains to be seen, but Stybar is going to have to do something very impressive indeed if he's to get to Geraint Thomas. Thomas has raced clear. He's got the gap he required. Sagan has been found out in a big way. He hasn't got the legs, and he'll do well to hang on for third. Meanwhile, Geraint Thomas isn't looking over his shoulder one little bit. If he did, he would see that Zdeněk Stybar has not given up on this one whatsoever. It's a tiny gap between them in real terms, but there is daylight. There's no aerodynamic effect at this point. Stybar desperately trying to grapple his way back onto the wheel of the Welshman. Geraint Thomas pushing for all he's worth with 3.5 kilometres remaining.
Well, it's a time trial into the finish, and Geraint Thomas is a very good time trial. It's on his own. He's been out front for a long period of time. Stybar trying to come up to him, but there's a gap about 5-10 seconds. But Sagan is gone. His legs have gone, so Geraint Thomas learned from last year. He never did this last year, finished third, but it does look as if he's got the strength. He did look super good on Old Quaremont. All he needed to do was try and hit them. I thought Sagan and Stybar would start looking at each other, but you can just see the cars starting to move around Peter Sagan, and it's all in the hands of Geraint Thomas now.
Well, you say Peter Sagan is gone. I tell you what, I think Zdeněk Stybar is gone in terms of getting on terms to take victory in E3 Harelbeke this year, because 10 seconds is the indicated gap between this man and his chaser, the lone chaser, Zdeněk Stybar. I say lone chaser, Sagan is still chasing a few seconds behind, but he's out of it in a big way. It's a match race between these two up front, two of the strongest riders in world cycling, but Geraint Thomas is one of the strongest pursuers in the world, and he has got the bit between his teeth, and he's got the opportunity to take the biggest win of his career. It would be surely at this point for Geraint Thomas' biggest win on the road for sure. 11 seconds, it's only going up, and he's racing towards glory. The man who was third in this race 12 months ago, 28 years of age, now racing with Team Sky with just 2.5 kilometres remaining. Nothing surely is going to stop Thomas now, so he's timed it perfectly.
It was a fantastic attack, and he did look strong. He had to go on the attack. He couldn't bring it down to a sprint. 2 kilometres to go. You think as the gap creeps up to Stybar to 12 seconds now, it does look as if he's got it in the bag. He learned something from last year when it came to the finish with the man sitting in third place at the moment, Peter Sagan. But a brave effort here by Stybar, but he's up against a stronger man.
Looks like another near miss for the Ethics Quick Step squad, because it's another important victory in the classics for Team Sky. They've got the win in Het Nieuwsblad a few weeks ago, courtesy of Ian Stannard. He is behind, in the group behind, and he'll have the news that Geraint Thomas is racing towards glory. Now just 1,800 metres remaining between himself and a very big win indeed. He's already taken victory this year in the Tour of Algarve, and he has put together some very impressive performances in Paris-Nice, especially second on a stage there, and fifth on general classification. An immense performance in a week-long stage race. And Geraint Thomas now, he turns his attentions to the classics, turns his attentions to the remaining 1,300 metres. Nothing surely is going to stop him now as he races towards the kite.
Yeah, 1 kilometre to go, 15 seconds. He has got 7 pro wins in his career, twice in Bayern Rundfahrt. But last year when he finished third in this race, and he's going to top the podium this year. Brilliant performance. He instigated it in the Old Quaremont, and chapeau to Geraint Thomas.
Well, we wondered if he'd done too much work in initiating this move and really driving it on. He was clearly the strength in the group, albeit they all three were working as a unit. But Stybar and Sagan surely knew that this attack was coming, but there was absolutely nothing they could do about it. Thomas left just a little bit of daylight, so by the time they were aware of it, he was already very much on the pedals. And as he reaches the finishing straight, inside the home straight now for Geraint Thomas, and what a thrill this will be for the young Welshman. 28 years of age, he's been a pro several years now, and has really developed over the last few years to be a vital cog in the Sky's stage race and classics squad. And who would bet against him taking a monument very, very shortly indeed. But this is a very, very big win, because coming up to the finish line, as he has a little look over his shoulder, well, he can be absolutely secure in the knowledge that he is going to take victory this afternoon. It's an imperious performance, a powerhouse performance by the Welshman. He gets his hands in the air and he punches the air, because Geraint Thomas is the winner of E3 Harelbeke for 2015. Zdenek Stybar will have to be satisfied with another very impressive success, for another very impressive performance, albeit not quite the success that he would have liked for Ethics Quickstep. The bridesmaids once more, and they managed to distance the big threat, Peter Sagan. But here comes the sprint behind, and Sagan has been mopped up as we look to see who's going to make it through for the sprint success. Is it Van Barle on the front for, and coming on the right-hand side, or in the middle of the group, is Trentin. Is it Trentin for the Ethics Quickstep squad? And just alongside him, I think, pinching that one, was Christoph of the Katusha team. No doubt about, though, who took the win. It was Geraint Thomas of Team Sky. And Peter Sagan cuts a disconsolate figure as he trails in behind the main group.